In many societies, kindness is admired. Charity is applauded. Generosity is celebrated. But in most of these cases, those traits are optional. They're encouraged, but they're not required. This will be a good time to announce that everyone should put their phones on the vibrating mode or off. That's okay.
You meant airplane mode, not
Airplane mode.
no vibration.
So in many societies, it's applauded. They emerge from the heart, from the conscience, from an individual's desire to do good. But Judaism is different. The Torah is different. In Judaism, kindness is not merely an expression of moral virtue. It's a mitzvah. It's a divine commandment. It's codified. It's structured. It's detailed. It's expected. It's not a matter of personal feeling. Do I want to give? Do I not want to give? It's a matter of Jewish law. This idea, revolutionary in its time, and radical even today, is what gives the Jewish moral system a unique and enduring power. It legislates kindness. So as we begin this exploration of Deuteronomy 14, verses 22 through 29, where the Torah laws of tithing are mentioned, we find ourselves that it's not merely talking about an agricultural law, about when you grow your crops, this is what you should do, this is how you should tithe. And it's not just about financial ethics. It's really at the heart of the fundamental truth of Judaism, the legislation of goodness. The Torah doesn't suggest that we support the poor. It commands it. It doesn't encourage giving. It demands it. From tithing one's produce to providing for the Levites and the Kohanim, the priests, taking care of the strangers, taking care of the orphans, taking care of the widows, taking care of the poor. The Torah lays out a comprehensive system of generosity that leaves little to chance. In the verses that we're going to study, we're going to find the laws called Maaser Rishon, that means the first tithing, Maaser Sheni, which means the second tithing. Second tithing, as we'll study, is an interesting tithing. You're tithing, you're giving it to yourself, but you can't eat it in your hometown. You have to go to Jerusalem and enjoy it there. So it's about make sure you visit Jerusalem from time to time. And we'll talk about them when we get to it. We're also going to learn about Maaser Ani, the tithing given to the poor. Each of these laws will have its own time frame, its own audience, its own target audience, and its own spiritual reasons for them. But they're united by one theme. Giving is not optional. It's part of the law. The poor don't have to wait for someone to be in a good mood. They don't have to wait for someone to be feeling charitable. The Torah will give them kind of a legal claim for support. And we'll study that when we get to the laws of the growing of the field and leaving food over in the field that a poor has access to. So the giver doesn't give out only on benevolence because they're in the mood of giving, but there's an actual Jewish Torah obligation to giving. The obligation is to God and to fellow man. It's a commandment from God, therefore fulfilling it connects you to God, and it's in order to help your fellow man so it builds a better society. In the Torah, the acts of kindness are not left to chance. They're written into law. There's so many pages in the Talmud that will delve into each and every one of these verses that we will study, the details of it. And that's how you build a society that endures, that stays for thousands of years. You see, when kindness is sporadic, society becomes unstable. When generosity depends on mood, the poor suffer greatly. When the economy is doing well, the poor will be taken care of. When there's a downturn, the first thing that will get cut is the gifts to the poor. The Torah doesn't want to leave it to how are you feeling today, because the hungry person is going to be hungry every single day. When compassion is systematized, when it becomes the rule rather than the exception, that's when civilization and community and society flourish. It's not about waiting to feel holy. It's about behaving in a holy way until those behaviors shape who we are. Holiness is not something that just is. You work hard at it. It takes effort. And what the Torah does is it guides us to acting this way every single day, and ultimately it rubs off on our character and we become charitable people. Why? Because it's part of our life. The Torah didn't just give us a heart and said feel for the poor. It gave us a system, a schedule, a calendar, times, amounts. Why? Because you can't build a world just on inspiration. You need that element of structure. Interesting that Judaism doesn't rely on saints. It trains ordinary people to do extraordinary things by making goodness a routine part of life. If we're only going to rely that every once in a while you're going to have in a community that one saint or that one charitable person, well, what if you don't live in that community? Or what if there's not enough to go around? It wants everyone to be involved in extraordinary things. Judaism is not a religion about the elite. It's about the individual person. The Torah wasn't reserved for the scholars. The Torah was given to all. Torah law was not just for the lawyers. It was given to the first grader as well. The laws of tzedakah are like the laws of kashrut, like the laws of Shabbat. It's part of the doctrine of the Jewish people. It's part of the 613 commandments. Judaism doesn't wait for people to feel like giving. It trains us to always be givers. That's what it wants from us. It's not merely interested in the outcome, it's interested in the transformation. Because if we become used to giving, we transform ourselves. Everything in our lives feels different. Why? Because we live on a different plane, that we care about others, that we're not just there for ourselves. The act of giving repeated in faith and in practice, it forms a soul of compassion. This legislation of kindness also elevates both sides of the exchange. If you think about it, the recipient doesn't feel as much as a beggar, because it's built in. There will be poor. As to why God created a world where there will be poor people, it's a great question that the philosophers have discussed, or Rabbi Akiva discusses in the Talmud. It was a great philosophical question challenging the Jewish people. Why did you legislate the giving of money to the poor? You guys are such believers in God. If God wanted that individual to have, God would have given that individual. Why are you interfering in God's master plan? That was the question that was asked of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva explained that that is the system that God created, where he wanted there to be a system of sharing. And yes, that there be poor people is part of the system until the Messiah comes, that there will be people in need, but he built into the system that those in need will always have someone or some institution to take care of them. And that institution is the institution of tithing. That there will always be this system in which someone that is poor, someone that is hungry, will have a way to find that support. In a time when many still view morality as subjective and charity as optional, Judaism's model stands as a bold and enduring model of how you can create a society that truly cares for one another. And it's what makes Judaism not just a religion of belief, but it's a faith of action. It's not just all about what's in the heart. You may be a very stingy person, and by nature you may not want to give. But the Torah says you're going to give anyway. You're going to get used to this. It's going to be part of the institution of the Torah. And it's why, if you look back for thousands of years, Jewish communities throughout all of history have always maintained, in the poorest and most difficult of times, they always had tzedakah funds, charity funds. They always had free loan societies. They always had burial societies. If someone couldn't afford to be buried, there was a society, a fund that took care of those that were poor that couldn't afford a place in a cemetery. There were always funds in every Jewish community to take care of the poor. It was built in. And it's something we should take tremendous pride in, that for thousands of years, hey, since we've moved to America, we've been okay. But we've lived in some very poor, difficult times. Our grandparents lived in Shtetlach and they did not have the luxury that we have today. And yet they made sure to even give them. They made sure that there were those that had less than them, and they would want to be able to give them. I want to share a story with you, and I'll share a few stories with you today. This story goes back in the early days of the Chabad movement. The first Chabad Rebbe, his name was Rabbi Schneur Zalman, known in the Yiddish phrase, the Alter Rebbe, the old rabbi, the original, the first Chabad Rebbe. Rabbi Schneur Zalman lived in Russia. He had a group of his Hasidim, of his followers. One of his Hasidim, one of his great followers, was a character. His name was Shmuel Munkes. Shmuel Munkes had a great sense of humor. He was the funny one amongst the group, but a loyal soldier of the Alter Rebbe. If the Alter Rebbe needed a mission done, needed something done, he knew he can turn to Munkes. With all of his mishigasin, with all of his jokes and all of his humor, he was the guy to get something done. So if something was critical, he would always turn to Munkes. It was Erev Yom Kippur, the eve of Yom Kippur. And the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Schneur Zalman, gets word. Let's explain this period of time in which we're living. There were these landlords. They were called the poritz. But unlike today, where it meant that the individual owned the home and you paid him rent, they owned neighborhoods. And they were kind of the landlord, the police force, the mayor all at once, which meant if you didn't pay rent, they had the authority by the government to arrest you and have you thrown in their own prison. And there was in the Alter Rebbe's town, this poritz, there was a family of 5 children, husband and a wife, who Nebuch couldn't make it and couldn't pay their rent. And they were a few months behind in rent. And at this point, the poritz had them all locked up. And it's Erev Yom Kippur. And the Alter Rebbe gets word of this, that there's a family with 5 children, a husband and a wife, and they're imprisoned because they owe back rent of 300 rubles. A large, large sum of money. They hadn't paid in months, they didn't have it. The Alter Rebbe can't accept the fact that this family is going to suffer in prison over Yom Kippur. So who's his go-to guy, as I told you? Munkes. He calls Munkes in. And he says, Munkes, I have a mission for you. I have a job for you. There's this family, they've been imprisoned by the poritz. They need 300 rubles. It's Erev Yom Kippur. You only have a few hours to pull this off. I need you to raise 300 rubles, go to the poritz, give him his 300 rubles, and get this family out before Yom Kippur begins. Okay, Munkes has been given his mission. Usually Erev Yom Kippur is a very busy day of prayer, of going to the mikveh, but this is more important because his Rebbe told him this is what he needs to focus on today, and that's what he's going to do. So he starts door knocking. And he starts going to each one. There's a family, 5 children. I need to raise money. I have to get it done today. And he's getting pennies. He needs rubles. But he's getting pennies because they didn't have. So this one would give 3 pennies, this one a nickel, this one a dime, whatever currency it was at the time. But he's literally collecting in the single dollars. He's not getting anywhere near what he needs. And the clock is ticking. And what does he do? So he thinks in this little shtetl here, this little Jewish community, there are a bunch of poor people that are not going to get any. I'm not going to get much. But in the next town, it's a Gentile town, but Gentiles like charity as well. I'm going to go there and see if they can afford it. So after he made his rounds in the Jewish community and collected whatever few dollars, few rubles he made, he goes to a neighboring village. There's no Ubers to get him there. There's no taxis. He's walking. And he walks in his Hasidic garb, and he comes into the other townlet. And the only place he sees action with his people, a large group of people, is the tavern, the bar. And they're having a good time. And they're in a good mood. And they're gambling in there. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And he says, this would be a target audience. This would be a wonderful place to try to raise 300 rubles. So he comes into the tavern. Now you can imagine a Gentile tavern and a Hasidic Jew walking in creates a scene. Immediately all heads turn like, where did this guy come from? And that's the attention that Munkus wanted. He wanted everyone's attention, and he had it. And so he gets up on a chair and he says, gentlemen, I'm from a neighboring town, and someone in that town, very poor, couldn't afford the rent. I have to raise 300 rubles to get him and his 5 sweet children out of prison. And although this is not a Jewish tavern that I'm at the same time, charity is universal. And so I'm appealing to you. Help me out. It'll help the children. Do it for the kids. And they're smiling, they're smirking, like this guy's coming in here to raise money from us. And one guy that's a bit drunk himself says, hey, you, Jew, come here. I'll make a deal with you. You see this bottle of vodka I have on my table? This is 196 proof. It's the strongest vodka you got. Here's my deal. You say a toast on a full glass, not a shot glass, a full glass of this, and you down it in one drink, no stops. I give you 100 rubles. You'll be a third of your way there. Now the first inclination of Munkus is, I can't drink that much. I could say l'chaim, but those are little shot glasses. This is and it's 196, and it's Erev Yom Kippur. I mean, I got to be ready for prayers myself. But at the same time, he knows that after hours in the Jewish community, all he got was a few pennies, and he has a mission. He has to accomplish it. He can't come back with a no. He says, you got yourself a deal. And now it has everyone in the bar's attention. They're all looking at this to see, can this Jew pull this off? The guy fills up the glass. Munkus takes it. He says his l'chaim, and he downs the entire glass. He can't believe the strength of this vodka. He's never had something so strong. And it shot to his head immediately, and he's wobbly, but he did it. And the fellow was true to his word. Took out 100 rubles and gave it to him. Wow. He's a third of the way there. So Munkus then says, all right, I have now a third. Is there anyone else here that would like to contribute to this fund? So another guy says, hey, I'll match the other guy. 100 rubles, but it's the same deal. Can you do a second full glass of it? Munkus says, I can't. There's no way I'm going to survive it. Is there any way you would negotiate? He says, no, that's the deal. 100 rubles, full glass. He says, I'm in this deep, I might as well give it a shot. Fills it up. Drowns the whole thing. Again, he can hardly stand on his feet. He's looking for a chair to sit down on, but he's got 200 rubles. He's only 100 rubles away. He's looking, and someone says, yep, I'll make the deal with you. Can the Jew drink 3 full glasses, which would be a record for this tavern? None of us have ever been able to do it. Can you do it? And if you do, jackpot, you got yourself 300 rubles. And Shmuel Munkus, this Hasidic Jew in this tavern on Erev Yom Kippur, says you got yourself a deal. And he downs the third cup of vodka, and he's given the 300 rubles. Now he's got to make his way to the Poritz's house. He can hardly walk. He's stumbling. He's crawling. He's resting. The clock is ticking. He's got to get there before Yom Kippur. That's the mission. Get them out before Yom Kippur. And he finally makes it there. He stinks of alcohol. He looks drunk. He's dirty because he's been falling on the ground the whole time. And he tells the Poritz, I have your 300 rubles. You let them out now. He counts it. Indeed, there's 300 rubles. The family is taken out of the prison cell. And Munkus says to them, this is a gift from the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Schneur Zalman, heard of your plight and sent me on a mission to get you out. Get home quick, get ready for Yom Kippur, you got to be in shul in an hour. And they're wondering, why is this chassid smell of alcohol? But they don't bother asking because they're so excited because they found their freedom. And they make their way out. Munkus now has a problem. It's an hour to Yom Kippur. He's drunk as hell. He can hardly walk. He hasn't eaten anything all day and the fast is about to start. And he's got to figure out, what am I supposed to do now? Let's switch scenes now. It's the Alter Rebbe Shul, the famous Rabbi Schneur Zalman. You can imagine on Yom Kippur, his synagogue is packed to capacity. You can't get in, it's bumper to bumper. Every single square foot is taken up by people. It's the holy, awesome day, and you feel the mood, you feel the presence. Everyone in their kittel, in their talis, prayer books in hand. The clock is ticking. And Kol Nidre is a prayer that must be said before it's dark. It can't be said when it's dark. And so you can't delay it anymore. The Alter Rebbe is constantly turning around. And we understand that he's looking to see, is Munkus back? But Munkus is not there. But he's got to start. And he nods to the cantor to begin the Kol Nidre. And the Chazan begins, the Kol Nidre, and everyone is crying and saying these holy words. And you say it 3 times. And by the time it gets to the 3rd Kol Nidre, the Torahs are all out from the ark, they're all next to the cantor. The door bursts open. And this guy is singing on the top of his lungs. Hadarai, hadarai, hey! And he starts dancing a Hasidic song, dancing to this medley. And he's drunk. It's Yom Kippur. Who dare disturbs the services? It's Munkus. Munkus, what are you doing? Everyone is asking you, crazy Munkus, what happened to you? It's Yom Kippur. He's ignoring everyone. He sees the Torah scrolls next to the cantor. He storms next to the cantor. He grabs a Torah scroll and he starts dancing around the shul, holding the Torah scroll, screaming at the top of his lungs, and no one could stop him. And they're trying to push him out, take the Torah away from him, kick him out of the shul. Munkus has gone mad. Munkus has gone nuts. Munkus is drunk on Yom Kippur. And the Alter Rebbe asks for silence in the room, all the commotion. And he says, let him be. Leave him alone. Let him do what he's doing. You see, all of us in the shul, we're holding by Yom Kippur. Munkus, he's holding by Simchas Torah. Yes. He's surpassed us. You see, we have to work our way through the month to get to the climax, to get to Simchas Torah, to get to celebrate dancing with the Torah. We go through a Rosh Hashanah, we go through the fasting of Yom Kippur, we go through the prayers of Yom Kippur, we build the sukkah, we do a lulav and esrog. All of this is to reach the culmination, the height, the peak, to get to the point where we can dance and celebrate with the Torah. Munkus passed us all along the way. He jumped to the very end with what he accomplished today. Leave him be. And this story really tells us all about, yes, there's a lot of commandments in Judaism, and there's the tefillin and the Shabbos and the kosher, but there's also that way of jumping. And that's the charity we give, the caring we have, the empathy we have, the caring that we have for our fellow. That gets us to that Simchas Torah level in life. You know, on the subject of the high holidays, we say a famous prayer that all of you may remember these words. I'll say it in Hebrew, but you may remember it in English. Uteshuva, utefila, utzedaka, ma'avirin es roa hagazera. In the highlight prayer of the high holiday service is called the Unesana Tokef. It's a tough prayer to read because it all brings a tear to eyes when we say on Rosh Hashanah, and it is written on Yom Kippur, it is sealed, who shall live and who shall die. It's determined today, tonight on Yom Kippur, what the upcoming year is going to be like. And some of those that are reciting that prayer, that might be the last time they're saying that prayer. But that prayer finishes with those words that I just told you, which means the power of repentance, and the power of prayer, and the power of charity can even negate a negative decree that has been sealed by God on Yom Kippur. Wow. It's never too late, because you've been given these powerful tools that are more powerful than even the seal of God on the holiest day of the year on Yom Kippur. That tzedakah, that charity, has that power to do. So in other words, acts of kindness are what we would call in today's modern day lingo, game changers. We like to use that expression, especially in the political arena, game changer. What's a game changer? Any action taken by either candidate that can change the dynamics of the whole campaign is called a game changer. And so while it's true that the fate for the upcoming year is inscribed in Rosh Hashanah and it's sealed on Yom Kippur, God allows for game changers. Actions that can totally change, turn everything around. And nothing brings forth greater blessings than when God sees his children empathizing with one another, helping one another, caring for one another. If you have children of your own and you have more than one child, you will know that there's no greater nachas than seeing your kids care for one another. It touches the heart, it touches the soul. God has that feeling as well. When he sees a society that's there for one another, that's a game changer. Then blessings come forth. Back when our ancestors were slaved in Egypt, early book of Exodus, the Torah tells us the story of Moses' birth. You remember a little bit of that story? He was born, the mother hid him for 3 months because there was a decree against all Jewish males that would be born, that the Egyptians were thrown to the Nile. And then after 3 months, what did they do? They hid him in a basket, right? Remember that part of the story? Who finds baby Moses in a basket? Pharaoh's daughter, Batya, finds her, has compassion for him, adopts him, wants to keep him, and he grows up in the palace as Prince of Egypt. It says this word, Vayigdal Moshe Vayar Bisivlosam. Literally translated, it means Moses grew up, he knew who he was, he knew who his biological parents were, and he sees his people in their slavery, in their anguish. He sees the suffering of his people. That's what the verse means. And it goes on to tell us the story that Moses interferes. He sees a Jew being beaten and he comes to the defense of the Jew. Vayigdal Moshe, Moshe grew up. Vayar B'sivlosam, he saw their distress. There's another way of looking at that same Hebrew verse. Vayigdal Moshe, Moshe became great because he saw them in their distress. Not he grew up. Gadol could mean he grew up, or it could mean he became great. When did Moses transform to become Moses? He was a prince of Egypt. How did he become the guy, the man? The main focus of the entire story of the book of Exodus, the main focus of the 5 books of Moses named after him. How did he become him? Because he became great, Vayar B'sivlosam, when he decided, yes, I'm pampered, yes, I can be a prince of Egypt, yes, I can close my eyes, but I can't. Because I care about them. Because I care about the poor, because I care about the hungry, because I care about the slaves, I care about their pain. When you have that empathy, you can become great. And that's Judaism. That's what Judaism is saying to us. It's not just about prayer. It's not just about study. It's not just about ritual. The commandments are not just between God and man. The commandments are also between man and man, governing our behavior and our care and our concern for each other. And you cannot have one without the other. You cannot have a relationship with God and ignore your fellow man, because that's not the religion that God is looking for. You have to have both simultaneously. If you care about God, then you'll care about his creations. And you'll take care of his creations if his creations are in need. Now, within every act of kindness performed for a fellow human being, you will find the fingerprint of God. That in itself is a godly act, as important as any ritual that you have between you and God. Helping your fellow, that's the fingerprints of God. This goes about a decade ago. It was about 10, 12 years ago, I think. It was a few days after Rosh Hashanah. And a colleague of mine from North Carolina, a friend of mine, and he told me this phone call that he received from someone from Los Angeles. His name was Harvey Yelnick, the person that called him. And he tells this rabbi in North Carolina, the father lives in North Carolina, but the story takes place in Los Angeles. You don't know me, he says to the rabbi. We've never met, but I'm calling to thank you. What are you thanking me for? He says, for what you guys, referring to Chabad, did for my daughter. And he went on to tell a story. My daughter's name is Deborah. Deborah moved to Los Angeles. Each year before Rosh Hashanah, I make my annual call to encourage her to go to the temple, to attend services. It's not a religious family at all. We don't keep most of the traditions, but Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur was always important to me. And now that my daughter is living independently, my obligation, I feel always as a father, is to call her before Rosh Hashanah and convince her, drop in, just even if it's a little bit, just drop into the temple. She would go reluctantly. It was almost as if she was always going because I would nudge her to go. If it makes you happy, Dad, fine, I'll go. But she really didn't have an interest. And she didn't enjoy it. There was nothing about it that she liked. She wasn't rebelling. It just didn't answer, it didn't say anything to her. There was nothing there for her. And so this year I made my annual call, but she was prepared for it. And she said, Pops, I know you're not going to want to hear this, but I've decided I'm not going this year. I've done it the last few years and I've done it for you, but I get nothing from it. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm going to work on Rosh Hashanah. I want to be honest with you. I don't want to do something behind your back. I want to let you know that that's where I'm holding in life. And he tells the rabbi, I know my daughter, and I know when she prepares and makes a decision, that's it. There's no wiggle room. It's not going to be in negotiations. She thought it over. She made a decision. I was saddened by it, but I wished her a happy new year. And when the call ended, it was like a dagger in my heart. I just felt like I didn't do my job. But what can I do? I didn't raise her with any of this, and I can't blame her. And I just felt bad that I didn't pass on enough of a love for the tradition and the love for Judaism and for the Jewish holidays, that this wouldn't have been a question and this wouldn't have been such a battle. Let's switch our story to the West Coast. Deborah Yelnick is walking on Wilshire Boulevard on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and she's heading to her office, oblivious to the holiness of the day. She's a block from her office on the corner of Ponceria. She's reaching for her cell phone because she wants to check her voicemail. And as she pulls out her phone, she sees a Chabadnik walking towards her on the block. Now, there's nothing about her that says I'm Jewish, but yet there was a part of her that felt uncomfortable on Rosh Hashanah to be using her phone in front of this religious guy. So she quickly puts the phone away. Why she did it, she can't explain, but it was an automatic reaction. She knew it was Rosh Hashanah. She knew this guy was religious, and she knew she was using a phone which she shouldn't be doing in Rosh Hashanah, so she immediately puts it away. And she figures, I'll wait till he passes by me, and I'll take my phone back out. That easy. As this Chabadnik is about to pass her, he walks over to a homeless man that's sitting beneath the awning of a Persian rug store. The guy that everyone ignores and walks right by, this guy walked towards him. And she hears him wishing him a good morning and says, do you happen to be Jewish? And he says, yes. And he goes on to say that his name is David. And the Chabad guy says to David, did you hear the shofar yet today? And David looks and says, Rick, really? Where? No. And he says, would it be okay if I blew the shofar for you? And David says, that would be great. And he pulls out a shofar from his pocket. And then he takes his own kippah and he puts it on David's head and he makes the blessings with David and he blows the shofar right there on Wilshire Boulevard. Deborah's watching this and she begins to cry. She can't move. She can't continue down the block because she's listening to the shofar on Wilshire Boulevard being blown by a total stranger for a man that everyone else just walks by and wants nothing to do with. And this guy does just the opposite. He treats him like a human being. He treats him like any other Jew. He blows a shofar for him because it's just as important for him as it is for anyone else. He puts his own yarmulke on this man's head. Harvey, who's telling this story over to my friend in North Carolina, says, my daughter did not go to the office that day. She went right back to her temple because she witnessed Jewish unity in action. She saw love. She saw caring. She saw a man who valued a stranger and believed in the power of a mitzvah. That was Rosh Hashanah to her. That had meaning to her. And she knew she needed to be in temple that day. It's not just about the ritual. It's about feeling for one another, being there for one another. Jewish life means crossing from the world of self to the world of others. In plain, simple English, that means to be a giving person. And it's true in all aspects of life. There was a girl who once asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe for advice. For those of you more familiar with the Rebbe received more letters than anyone else in New York. The post office would always send a truck every single day. There was sacks of mail that would come from all over the world. People would write to him for advice. And in his time, whatever time he would be able to devote to and responding to responses would be coming out. Secretaries would make phone calls to the one that sent the letter, what the Rebbe's advice, guidance, blessings may be. So there was a girl that wrote to the Rebbe. And he answered young kids as well. That would always write, whether it was a first grader or fifth grader, whatever, he would respond to children. And she wrote that she's concerned about herself because she finds that she's a selfish person. And she doesn't want to be selfish, but I am. I don't like giving, I don't like sharing. I find myself to be selfish. What do I need to do? I'm always concerned about myself, about me being happy, about the things I want. I don't have it in me to care. And the advice was so simple. It wasn't this mystical advice, and it wasn't that you have to do this and do this, and it was very simple. She said, the Rebbe wrote to her, the next time you're in the cafeteria at school, and you're sitting there with your friends, and you're getting up from your table to go to the kitchen to get something for yourself, simply stop and ask the other girls, would anyone want something? That's it. Start with a simple exercise. Get used to asking others, can I get you something? If you practice this every single day, you will ultimately change yourself. Things will change. The Torah's idea was to legislate the kindness, to legislate the goodness, not because it wants to impose the tax, but because it wants to transform us. So we become that person that wants to give, that's happy about giving, that's desiring giving, that's enjoying giving. That's the type of society it wants to make. When you do kind things for people, you become a kind person. When you anticipate the needs and you feel the pain of others, you become a great person. Vayigdal Moshe became the great Moses because he cared about the individual slave. He became great because he saw the pain and distress of his brothers. I'll conclude today with one more story, and then you'll have a wonderful lunch. It's April of 1945, shortly after the war. Thousands of Jewish refugees ended up in the city of Chernovitz, which was part of Romania, formerly part of Romania. And these were survivors, concentration camp survivors. They were poverty-stricken, they were broken-hearted, and they were all coming to the city of Chernovitz. They're looking to pick up the pieces of their lives. Amongst the group that was in Chernovitz at the time was a Hasidic Rebbe. His name was the Skoliner Rebbe. Okay, the Rebbe from Skolin, the Skoliner Rebbe. Passover was approaching. It's 1945. The Skoliner Rebbe was concerned that the Jews in Chernovitz should have matzah for Passover. That year, after what we've been through, let's be able to celebrate Passover. But in order to celebrate Passover, of course, we need matzah. So he sought a local farm. He obtained some wheat, got hold of a millstone and an oven, and began to produce matzah. To anyone that came by, anyone in the city of Chernovitz or the neighboring towns, he gave 3 matzahs that you could use by your Seder table. He also spread word to the neighboring villages to let everyone know they can come with a ration, 3 matzahs per person. It's a week before Passover. A young man, his name was Moshe Hager, comes to the Skoliner Rebbe. Who was Moshe Hager? He was the son of another Rebbe known as the Vizhnitzer Rebbe, a different Hasidic Rebbe. He was in a neighboring townlet. The son of the Vizhnitzer Rebbe comes to the Skoliner Rebbe saying, I hear you have matzah. I'm here to get matzah for my father. He hands him 3 matzahs. And he says, my father, the Vizhnitzer Rebbe, requested 6 matzahs. So the Skoliner says, I'm rationing because I have to make sure there's enough for everyone. That's why I have the 3 matzah ration. The son of the Vizhnitzer says, yes, but my father is the Vizhnitzer Rebbe, and he has requested 6 matzah. So the Skoliner Rebbe says, of course, no problem. And he gives him 6 matzah because this was the son of the Vizhnitzer Rebbe. It's the day before Passover now. The sun is about to set. Moshe Hager is back at the Skoliner Rebbe's house. And he's carrying with him 3 matzahs. And he calls the Skoliner Rebbe and he says, my father asked that I give you these 3 matzahs. So the Skoliner says, I don't understand. When you came and I said I'm rationing, I'm only giving 3, you insisted that I give you 6, and now you're coming back to give me back 3. So he said the following, my father, the Vizhnitzer Rebbe, knows you. He knows the type of person you are. And he knows that you gave away every last matzah and you didn't save a single one for yourself. And so he thought about this before. He insisted on taking 6 so that I can come back right before Passover and give you back 3 so that you would have 3 for the Seder table. And that's exactly what had happened. The Vizhnitzer Rebbe, the Skoliner Rebbe, had given away every last matzah, left nothing for himself because it was more important for him that others would have, that their spirits would be lifted. I ask, when you think about this, in this story between these 2 Hasidic Rebbes, who was the more selfless person of the 2 Rebbes? Think about it. The Skoliner Rebbe, who made sure to make matzah, to distribute matzah, and left nothing for himself, or the Vizhnitzer Rebbe, who pre-thought and said, this guy is going to give away everything and that's not fair. I'm not going to let him not have matzah for Passover. So he pre-thought a plan. Let him think that I'm selfish for 2 weeks. Let him think whatever he wants to think of me for 2 weeks. But I'm going to demand the 6 matzah only so that I can give it back to him right before Passover. That's what we're supposed to be. The model of these two individuals, that's the model we should all strive to. To be constantly be thinking about the other more than ourselves. To be focused on what does the other need. That's why the Torah goes ahead, legislates it. Doesn't leave it up to you. Are you in a good mood? Are you a charitable person? Are they going to honor you? Anything of the sort. No, it wants you to give because it's the right thing to do. It's as important as any other mitzvah. And when you get used to this mitzvah, it's going to start feeling good. Then it's going to be part and parcel of your personality, your character. Like that girl that wrote to the Rebbe, I'm a selfish person, but I don't want to be. What should I do? The answer is practice. Just start doing things. It'll change you. You will become the Yigdal Moshe, the great Moses. The Moses that each and every single one of us can become in our own life, in our own circumstances. How? By seeing the pain of others and empathizing.